Good evening, fellow Nigerians. Um, this message is to provoke the thought of every person that will be voting in Lagos, particularly our youths. It's really to remind us why Gbadebo cannot rule Lagos. Lagos is the fifth largest economy in Africa, and therefore it's not a toy for experiment in inexperienced hands. I start with reminding us that the primary criticism of the incumbent governor relates to dissatisfaction that is controlled by a godfather, who is now the president elect. The primary opponent is the Labour Party, whose candidate, Gbadebo, also has many godfathers, including Bode George and Obasanjo. So, will voting for Gbadebo eliminate godfatherism in our politics? The real question is which godfather will serve our interests better? A godfather who has a track record of excellence in developing the blueprint for progressive transformation and will now be the commander in chief of the nation. Or godfathers who have track record of ridiculing themselves, self-serving, and compromising us Yorubas as a nation. Be reminded, the Labour Party, which produced Gbadebo, gained momentum in Lagos on the NSAS Obedient platform, which is a youth movement, not a political party. We need to dispel some of the confusion Labour Party is capitalizing on. The youth NSAS movement is not same as the Labour Party. So don't be fooled into thinking as a youth seeking good governance, you are compelled to vote for Labour Party. Absolutely not. The NSAS movement was a national phenomenon, branded as obedient. Therefore, it was logical during the presidential elections that most of its members would vote for Obi. But for the gubernatorial elections, it's important that our youths recognize and exercise their free will to vote for a candidate irrespective of their party, who they believe has the capacity and the capability to govern without subjecting them to the loss of their identity or heritage. Really, what does that mean? So a youth in Kano may feel an NNP candidate has the best capacity to deliver their agitations. And we saw that. We saw that in Kano. Whilst a youth in Anambra may feel a Labour candidate has the strongest, capability while sustaining their values and culture. So Lagos youths are no exception. So they could vote for a candidate who has the capacity to empower them economically whilst protecting their identity and heritage. Otherwise, they become second-class citizens in their own land. The Labour Party is a tribal party agitating for Igbo causes, not youth empowerment. This was clearly evidenced during the presidential and House of Rep elections, where the Labour Party only put forward Igbos as candidates, and they didn't believe any Yoruba, deserves to represent the party in Lagos. That is highly relegating. That itself should raise alarm bells to all Yoruba youths in Lagos and not be tricked again into supporting a platform that has other ulterior motives in Lagos that are contrary to the youth obedient movement. It is no coincidence that the party gave the Lagos governorship ticket to Gbadebo rather than a full-blown Yoruba man. Gbadebo indisputably is a thoroughbred Igbo man, aligned fully to his Igbo roots. He dresses and dances in Igbo traditions. He was raised as Patrick, not Gbadebo. He is married to an Igbo woman. He does not speak Yoruba, but fluently speaks Igbo. So how can someone who speaks another tribe's language possibly represent the people of Lagos? Without doubt, Gbadebo has been raised as an Igbo boy in Igbo traditions and is simply a front for his strong affiliations with other Igbo movements, particularly the IPOB and Biafra. We cannot afford to take the risk to hand him Lagos governorship. Also, be reminded that Gbadebo was in fact of the PDP, a member of the PDP at the time of the NSAS obedient protests. That further illustrates that a member of the youth obedient movement is not compelled to vote for Labour Party by default. Even Gbadebo, who was, a very obedient NSAS activist, would have been voting PDP had he not been rejected from the party. I think that's quite useful to remember. So this reaffirms that the Labour Party has successfully fooled our youth to support their tribal motives during the presidential campaign by mis-selling the Labour Party as a youth empowerment movement. Don't be fooled again. As the saying goes, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Irrespective of which party Gbadebo belongs to, does Gbadebo have the credentials to govern Lagos, the jewel of Nigeria's crown? It is particularly worthy of note that all interviews granted by Gbadebo to share his priorities and his manifesto if elected into office. I'm not aware of him prioritizing any initiatives for youth empowerment. Instead, his manifesto has focused on building low-cost housing and short interconnecting bridges around Lagos, for which he already has a construction company, by the way. Lagos already has a blueprint that has kept us on a progressive trajectory for the last 24 years. So if Lagos is not working, people will not be trooping from other states to Lagos for a better life, including Gbadebo's principal, Peter Obi, who abandoned the state that he governed for 2 terms because he couldn't make it work. Lagos is no child's play for the inexperienced. So when probed about his experience, Gbadebo, he virtually just regurgitates a very well-rehearsed script during his interviews. He attempts to bamboozle his interviewers with big grammar till they lose sight of the actual question. As he cannot even speak the, Lagos regional traditional Yoruba language, exactly how will he engage with our people, our traditional rulers, our market men and women, and even the Agberos, that has been one of the hottest topic of discussion that he's going to prioritize? When challenged about his lack of experience, Gbadebo automatically deflects to statements about Awolowo and Jakonde having no previous experience in government. How can he possibly compare himself to bona fide, legitimate Yoruba men of our society who were highly visible and respected in the political landscape, who speak our language fluently, who dress and dance in our traditions, who are deeply rooted in our culture, both by association and by practice, and they have no affiliations with other tribal movements that may pose a threat to our Yoruba heritage? That's a gross insult. He then narrates some experience working for Chinese government and, Malaysia government or something. In what capacity did he take this work? Was his role and what were his roles and responsibilities? Were these executive roles with multi-stranded leadership and management responsibility? Or were they merely work placement as part of his academic studies? How does these roles qualify him to become governor of any state? It is highly doubtful that he has executive background. We saw how he conducted himself during an interview, chewing gum on national TV. He was only known for vying for local government chairman role, which he lost. And now he wants to leap from that to become governor of Lagos State. Gbadebo's entire career background is shrouded in total mystery. He returned to Nigeria in 2008 after completing master's in Massachusetts, in MIT. And then he wrote to complete his youth service in 2009. Very little is known about what he's been doing in Nigeria since that time, except being seen as an activist on various issues and movements. His tweets, expose his strong support and affiliation with IPOB and Biafra. The page, of course, has now been pulled down to deny allegations of transparency into his background. His LinkedIn page has no record of any gainful employment or professional background. He has resurfaced again. He resurfaced again in 2017, which is when he contested for the Ikeja local government chairman under the COA party, which he lost. He then jumped to PDP to contest for Lagos West Senate seat in 2019. His campaign at that time was also dominated with attacking the incumbent's attainments rather than selling what he has to offer. Of course, he lost again. So in 2002, he then competed for the party's governorship ticket and lost to Jandor. When Jandor rejected him as his running mate, he then decamped to join the Labour Party. So his track record of career failures and affiliations to undignified organizations are the credentials he wants to present to Lagosians to become governor. With the absence of noteworthy experience behind him, it is not surprising that Gbadebo has resorted to a strategy of propaganda to arouse sentiments of voters towards him and override his blatant lack of demonstrable competency. We have seen how Gbadebo has taken his propaganda game to new heights by trying to use his swift attendance to the scene of the, Akere market fire to position himself as a compassionate governor. So does that singular act come anywhere close to the compassionate leader that someone who demonstrated remarkably to navigate Lagos out of the COVID crisis? Or did Gbadebo show any compassion to Lagosians when he led hoodlums during NSAS to destroy the homes, businesses, and livelihoods in, majority Yoruba areas, whilst they conveniently missed out Igbo communities like Amuwo, Alaba, Trade Fair, who did not suffer any losses during these protests? This man has zero credentials for him, even as a junior staff in Alausa, talk less a governor. Propaganda and demanding sentiments, even out of the shores of Nigeria. Can you imagine writing to US President, Ferdinand President? It didn't work for his principle for the presidential elections, so it cannot work for Gbadebo for the Lagos gubernatorial elections. People's eyes have opened. All the NSAS youths, they deceptively converted their votes to Labour Party, now understand there's a difference between their obedient youth movement and Labour Party, which is for Igbo agitations. So